Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Channel studio here in London for the last word. And today with me is Harinder Singh of the Sikh Research Institute. I'd like to welcome Harinder Singh to our program.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's good to be here.
Yes, so you've just done a talk at Central Gurdwara, Khalsa Jatha London, and we've been talking about how to unify everyone and how to keep things back to Khalsa, to get everyone looking into the oneness of the Ik Omkar, getting everyone unified again. And how do you think that's going to happen?
Well, the only way it can happen is the way it used to happen, which essentially is when people are connected to the Shabad, which is the wisdom contained within Guru Granth Sahib for us. Until and unless we understand that and start practicing it, which is visible in our daily behavior, we will not get unified. We will have superfluous unifications. So, you know, and one of the examples I had given in my talk was that whether it's in 20th century or in 18th century, whether it is during genocide time or Green Revolution time, the thing which really works is when people unify under the banner of Guru Granth Sahib, when they take the teachings and instructions from the Guru, not from individuals or just Jathebandis.
So we have this problem within the Sikh community that we have so many different various groups and they seem so ready to fight with each other than to unify and deal with what is the actual threat to Sikhism. Yeah.
Well, you know, the external threats have never really destroyed us. In fact, whenever there have been genocidal campaigns, people have predicted we will be wiped off from this earth, including professors like, or writers like Khushwant Singh in his 1961 book said that Sikhs will not see the next millennium. The point is these kind of predictions come whenever there's external threat. Issue has been that we have had too much delusion in our Gurmat or the doctrine, and that's the biggest threat to us. And I'll give another example of that is that, you know, Akal Takht has been destroyed so many times. But since 1995, now we have reduced Akal Takht status in our minds, in our psyche, and that's a bigger threat.
That's the biggest.
So when we start destroying things even at a doctrinal level, at our mind level, at a Punjabi and Sikh psyche level, that is the biggest threat. And that usually happens when we are not connected to the Shabad, when we are not really listening to the instruction of the Guru which are contained for us in Guru Granth Sahib. Rather, we start copying what other traditions and other people are doing.
It's interesting what you said about Sikhs reaching the next millennium, because when the British first ran across the Sikhs, they were studying us with great fascination because they thought we were a dying race.
Yeah. Well, you know, everyone says that. That's why, you know, every South Asian ruler has said that. In 18th century, they declared us that we were, you know, criminal and illegal, and they said no Sikh is left. In 19th century, it happened. In 20th century, it happened. In 80s as well. Now we're in a new millennium. In fact, you know, one of the theses of Sikhi actually is when people are eliminating us, even physically, the reason they're doing it is because we are strong. Because we are steadfast in our belief. Your forefathers and your foremothers, my forefathers and foremothers, we are the descendants of people like Bhai Taru Singh, not in biological sense, but in value sense. And why was he tortured and martyred? Because he believed in certain values. Because what are those values? Values which make us free. Freedom from spiritual slavery, economic slavery, political slavery. And that's what used to unite us. Exactly, you know, which is what Guru Nanak Sahib taught us in everywhere, from Guru Nanak through Gobind Singh Maharaj. And institutions were developed by each Guru to make sure we become mentally free, spiritually free, politically free, economically free. So, you know, this is what moksha or mukti is for Sikhs. This is what marjivada is, that you are free while you are alive in this world, not the world beyond. And this is what our traditions maintain. Historically, this is who we remember in Ardas. This is how our shaheeds used to be. This is how our writers used to be. This is how our people who are incredible sevadars and jathedars used to be. This is how the renaissance of Sikhi came about, that we became free at each and every level.
Yes. Actually, on to the topic of shaheeds.
Yes.
13th of March was the day when Shaheed Udham Singh, a Sangat member of the Khalsa Jatha, British Isles, shot Michael O'Dwyer in Caxton Hall.
Yes.
And very sanely just said, "Here I am, take me, do what you will."
Well, you know, I think sometimes people say there are coincidences in life. I am one of those who believes that there are no coincidences in life. This is a great lesson for us that, a lot of our community runs away from political activism. And here is somebody in London who came here, and he was not even in Sikh form, right? Sometimes we internally start arguing who's a Sikh, but those who are killing us, they never argue about that. Anyone who says he's a Sikh, she's a Sikh, or he's a Sikh.
Yes.
So the point is, yes, he was a member. He has his last meal at Punjab restaurant here in central London.
Yes.
And he came to Gurdwara here. And even if people don't know his incredible history, even with all his misgivings, even if you have seen his regular Punjabi movie where Raj Babbar is acting it out,
Yes.
he in fact shows in on his mission on the last day, he stands in front of whatever the popular culture is, which is a portrait of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, and he says, help me get success in my mission. And this is us. These are the Punjabis who embrace Sikhi, and this is how we were used to be, that we are not about vengeance, but we are about justice. When the laws of the land fail, when there are extremities adopted by the governments of the times against injustices, then we figure out our own way, not by talking to institutions, not by creating conspiracy theories, not by doing stupid things, but by having conversations with Waheguru or Guru.
Yes, I'd actually like to sort of increase awareness amongst our viewers of Michael O'Dwyer.
Yeah.
Was a governor of Punjab.
Yes.
He was not just the governor when the Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place, but he was also gave the order for warplanes, albeit in their basic form, to bomb Sikhs who were protesting in Gujranwala, and they also strafed the Sikh population there. A very modern technique in warfare at the time, to be using planes on ground attack, something which had just been recently, picked up in the First World War, and that's a sort of oppression we got. So when we talk about Saddam Hussein having killed his own people, the governor of Punjab was killing Punjabis, and there was cause and there was reaction.
Yeah, and there's a reaction, there's planning, it's not just emotional, there is a strategy involved, and this is not a reactionary all the time. There is also certain times, certain elements, certain institutions that try to get justice, but those things weren't working. And we are sitting in England. This is a place where Sir Thomas More went against the emperor to say there are times when the law of the land fails and the cosmic law takes over. So Udham Singh is a great reminder to me in my personal life, because he was hanged on July 31st, which is my birthday. So I tell people, it's a reminder that we belong to that tradition in the free world, in the free thinking way, regardless of our personal adherence to the level of Sikhi. We all know the ideals of Sikhi. We know what Guru Nanak through Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj came here to do on a particular mission, to free us from spiritual and political corruption. Again, in this world, that's what's happening. And similar things, incidents are taking place. In fact, this week there have been conversations on this very topic here in London as well.
Yes, of course, we've got the whole issue now, once again in India. So the Chief Minister, BALWANT Singh, was assassinated.
Yes.
And we've got the whole topic once again. We've got the history repeating itself. So we've got BALWANT Singh, and he's presently in jail. And was handed a death sentence to be served on the 31st of March. But there seems to be a lot of political shenanigans going on around it. And it's that actually which I want to look at, how is this being made into a political game by the politicians in India, by, you could say, the Badal regime and the Congress regime?
Yeah, and other outfits of the Indian government's administrations. So this is not just limited to the political parties or the congregations worldwide, including the ones in London. There are other sentiments, it's a complex matter. There's a huge nexus, and I think one of the things when we discuss these sensitive issues, we should be very careful. I'm proposing this, I'm submitting this. We should be very, very careful not to make absolute statements, because we really don't know what the realities are. What we do know is what Gurbani is, we know what our traditions are, we know what our history is, we have certain level of facts available to us, and what we need to learn to do is contextualize contemporary realities in our tradition. So, when somebody asks me, what should we do? Like, should we protest against this? Should we ask for pardon? All these questions are going on. Well, all we know is there's a history of Sikh struggles in the continent of South Asia, and there's a history of Sikh struggles outside of continent of South Asia. One thing which remains very clear in our history of Sikh struggles, in a larger thesis, is that we have never run away. And you mentioned in Udham Singh earlier, there are statements on Sukha Jinda. Again, these are revolutionaries who took on the governments of the time. It doesn't matter in which era. And every time, whenever they did whatever they did, which was against fighting injustices in their capacities, you and I can debate about them, but we're trying to understand why they did what they did. They never said that they wanted pardons or amnesties or some relaxations from the governments of the time. In fact, I want to mention one interesting thing, that a couple of months ago I read an article by somebody who's an executioner for the Indian government. And it was his interview printed in the Indian magazine, where they're asking him, and he's saying this has been his profession for the last 40 years. And he says, I don't want my son to go into this profession. But they asked him, what kind of people did you see? What is your impression of when you are executing someone? Because in India, last 20 years, there have been very few executions.
Is this an executioner from Delhi?
He's actually from UP area.
Oh, UP area.
Anyway,
okay.
and what's fascinating, which I think your audience and as Sikhs we need to understand and contextualize. And this is not just about Sikhs. This is about every Indian and every human being. There are 7 billion people on earth, and 1.2 are in India, and 27 million are Sikhs. So this applies to all of us. They asked the executioner, what used to happen to people who were walking, that's we say last man, dead man walking, that idea, the last steps he takes. He says, primarily he saw people who were very, very in a bad state. They couldn't even walk properly. He saw some who were crying. He saw some where they were even urinating while they're walking. He says, but he also saw some, and he uses this word, he says he saw some Khalistani militants who were actually celebrating with jakaras and distributing sweets. And this is our history. Whether you agree or disagree with the politics of it, whether you disagree with the action themselves, whether you agree or disagree with the legality or illegalities of it, one thing remains part of the Sikh tradition is this, that people who embrace martyrdom, regardless of how they did it, they actually use that as a celebration. Ratan Singh Pangu writes in the 18th century, there was Baba Gurbakh Singh Nihang Shaheed, and he knows he's going to die today defending Darbar Sahib, but he did it as if he's getting ready to get married. Lada Banke is the word he uses. And you see this in the poetry of Professor Puran Singh, who was originally published 100 years ago from England. Because in India, he wasn't introduced because of jealousy until M.S. Randhawa introduced him in 1960s. And even Professor Puran Singh has a great poem, which I highly recommend everyone go read, where he says, death is the bride of the brave. This is the kind, whether you agree or disagree, hats off, or we say pug salute to them, that people who are able to do this. And there is a warrior code worldwide. We can agree or disagree on why somebody did what they did, but you got to salute them for how they do it. And I contextualize this from Gurbani's angle as well, that, these are our Pagats, is what I say. Our Pagat is not the one who just is a modern day recluse and only does Simran 24/7. Our Simran is continuing all the time. The way our Simran comes out in public life, in external life, in social and political and economic life is, as Gurbani to me says, Bhagtan ki chal nirali. The way Sikh walks, the way Sikh talks, the way Sikh proactively does something, reactively does certain things, it does not fit into the system of the world, but it fits into the way Guru told us to act.
Going on to Shahidi, how does the concept of Shahidi fit into Sikhism? Where did it originate from? Because the word Shaheed is not a Punjabi word, is it?
No, actually, interestingly, the subcontinent of India, the majority population wasn't even aware of this. It comes from Arabic, which literally means witness unto truth, with a capital T. Not your truth or my truth, but what we equate to divinity or God or Ikowankar, that idea of truth. And somebody who is a witness to truth is considered Shaheed. It's a foreign word to India, and Sikhs introduced it in India.
Okay.
And in fact, I say this historically, when Sikhs disagree with the political activism, that Guru Arjan is the one who showed us a path from Shabad to Shahadat. How do you bring wisdom onto your life, which prepares you for self-sacrifice as well? So, Sikhs introduced this, and the Sikh tradition invokes it, but Guru Nanak Sahib also forewarns us that everyone who dies in the battlefield is not a shaheed. He says in Asa Ki War, Lak Surtan Sangram Ranmay Chhote Pran. Hundreds and thousands of people are dying in the battlefield in the name of religion. That does not make them a shaheed. Shaheed is the one who's a witness unto truth. Somebody who does it not for personal gains or popularity or to become famous or to protect only his own people. He does it or she does it because they are doing it as Waheguru as their witness, Ik Oankar as their witness. And that tradition in Sikh is celebrated. No Sikh can run away the way we do Ardas. And the first 3 paragraphs of Ardas are celebrating our history, starting from Guru period all the way till 21st century, 2012, where people contributed by various means, including those who gave up their lives to fight injustice.
Quite often we think at the Khalsa Jatha British Isles that we need to maybe get people to realize what the Ardas is that they do day in, day out, because it appears that it's just been, done from the mouth without invoking any meaning.
Yes.
And it is very meaningful, and we...
Well, obviously it's meaningful. It's meaningful to those who do it with a great faith and great understanding. Otherwise, it's merely a ritual. And I'm not against ritual. I'm just saying ritual transcends it to something beautiful and powerful when it's done with faith and understanding.
Yes.
So, and that's what gurus ask us to do, that develop awareness, the surut. Consciously doing something, understanding and feeling, all those things come together in the word surut. So as you were mentioning earlier, if Balwant Singh's case, and contextualizing in today's context, we need to look at individual, the man, what he did, why he did it. And we should not be asking, as I understand in Sikh tradition, what family does, what individual does is great. I'm not going to discount it. It's not my place to tell him what to do. But he himself is saying, we cannot be asking for amnesties from the government. We are the history where we said when somebody kills us, we become double and triple. We are the history where where Professor Pooran Singh actually beautifully says, he says, generally the battles of liberty end up in defeat. And he says that doesn't matter to Sikhs. What matters is that the Guru had raised a new soul consciousness in us, which did not allow us to remain slaves anymore in India. And that's what the issue is. We are here not to just protest. We are not here just to say that, show them off that we can do this. We are here to set examples when government thinks there are no Sikhs left, when the government thinks that no Sikh will take whatever action to deliver justice. Shyam Singh Atariwala did it in Anglo-Sikh wars, Bhutta Singh and Garja Singh did it, and we see examples in the last 30 years. But that does not mean these are the only ways to do it. In the West, we have things called just war theories and guerrilla warfares, and we have to contextualize these things in those systems as well. But the idea is we cannot also run away from our tradition, where when every other mean has been exhausted, as Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj said, make sure we exhaust all our means. Make sure we don't ask amnesty from those who are killing us. Make sure we are actually connected to the Guru. Ask the Guru, how should I personally deal with this situation? And ask the Guru, how should we panthically deal with this situation?
Interestingly, in dealing with the situation, there's been a lot of interest from the media. There's been people within the community have risen up to say, well, hang on, India appeared to have a moratorium on carrying out death sentences, yet it's handed out another death sentence. Here's a country which is seeking UN Security Council membership, so it's got global problems. Should it carry out a death sentence or risk causing problems in respect of its global aims? I see the Indian administration with a massive dilemma. On one hand, by Balwant Singh is asking very tough questions of both our leaders and Indian leaders.
And let me back up a bit. So what Bhai Balwant Singh is saying is, he's not saying is, he's actually living it. We are trying to provide voices and understandings of what he's doing, why he's doing. He's actually a living example of there are ways to fight injustices, and he is one of them, and he stayed jail. He's not asking for any sort of relaxation at all. But what he is proposing to the world, as I see, I mean, I am one voice, and I'm thinking aloud from a Sikh context and the world context. He's actually presenting to the world and 1.2 billions. Why are there unjust laws? He's basically saying you have one laws for Sikhs and one laws for non-Sikhs. He's basically saying India is becoming a world power and wants a Security Council membership vote, permanent council. But this is where People think India's got a great tiger economy. Even magazines like Economists have written, it's actually an elephant economy. It moves very slow. But it also says recently, just a month ago, the intelligence unit of economists rated India to be a flawed democracy, which created havoc in Indian circles. And the reason, one of the reasons it said it was a flawed democracy is, including the State Department of US, that there are issues with minority rights. There are issues with religious rights. There are issues with discriminatory, regressive policies. And I think, the Arab world has seen Arab Spring and the Jasmine Spring. St. Paul Cathedral has seen for economic rights, where the church leaders have intervened. The church must side with those who are poor, who are fighting for these rights. Occupy Wall Street is going on. I'm looking for a day, and maybe this is the trigger point when we will have Occupy Amritsar, Occupy Kartarpur, and Occupy Delhi, and Occupy Bathinda, and Occupy Ludhiana, to make a point that India is a flawed democracy. We need to figure out systems, and India needs to exercise its conscience. 1 out of every 6th person in the world right now is Indian. This should be a moral question for them. A conscience should be explored and implored to see how to deal with these dichotomies. And from a Sikh angle, when we look at Guru Granth Sahib, there's a very clear message in one of the Shabads by Bhagat Ravidas ji, where he says, the reason we are here is to establish a city without sorrow, Begumpura. And every Sikh, you and I and some of us might not be able to explain what that is, but our psyche knows what that is. This is a place where there is no discrimination. And Bhagat ji says the only way to have stability in that Shabad, which is a vision of Guru Granth Sahib, he says the Begumpura, the city without sorrow, will be established. The stability in our homes, in our communities, in the nations will come whenever there are no second and third class citizens. Domna same are the words he uses. So basically, anywhere where people feel they are second and third class citizens, there are going to be repercussions which governments and the people of those countries and those constituencies need to really own up to and start figuring out how to solve these issues instead of shoving them under carpet and not dealing with them.
Picking up on the word constituency and moving it on to constitution.
Yes.
The Indian constitution, is it a recipe for disaster that it's created these problems? India says it's a secular country. However, its constitution feels the need to start defining religious groups and goes and defines Sikhs as Hindus.
Yeah, actually, I mean, this is a question which comes up over and over in Sikh circles, but every minority is dealt with like that. Basically, in India, there is a majority-minority relationship where even other minorities are used against each other. For example, Sikhs are allowed under the quota system of caste system for admissions and special privileges, but Muslims are not.
Yes.
So, one minority gets it, but other doesn't. But Christians are able to get their law, and Muslims are able to get their own religious laws, but Sikhs are not able to get that. My point is, there is a ingenious design in one sense to keep certain minorities happy about certain thing and not work with each other to create a pressure group with the majority that, hey, there are some serious problems in the way we are dealing with these things. And I don't think anyone in the world, individuals, people at large, which includes Sikhs, and Sikhs have their own issues. Why is there a forced identity on us? I was born in India. My birth certificate says I'm a Hindu. One of the reasons I did not get married in India, my wife and I, at the time my wife-to-be, we wanted to sort of, follow the ideas of Guru Sahib and had our own romantic notion to get married in Gulu Ka Lahore. We didn't, because our marriage certificate said you are married under the Hindu Marriage Act, which, by the way, in the British India, Sikhs had an independent marriage act, an unmarriage act.
Yes.
In independent India, it was repealed and replaced by Hindu Marriage Act. So there are issues of those nature, constitutionally speaking. There are river water issues, there are human rights violations issues. In fact, within the last week, another issue has come up where a former, a retired Indian intelligence officer, M.K. Dhar, he was saying this before the elections in Punjab. He was appealing publicly, and it was printed in Times of India, that, the political parties in Punjab should not, including Badal, must not play with the sentiment of Sikhs. Because what he had started doing was, one of the sitting minister and the candidate again, that he started giving saropas to people who had killed Sikhs. Saropas.
Yes.
He had, and M.K. Dhar, not a Sikh guy, he's saying, this is playing with Sikh sentiments. Please don't do that. But they continued, and as soon as the new CM come in again, this is not about him personally, it's about the policies which come up. which is where constitution and other regressions come in, that one of the things he implemented is everyone in Punjab knows there are so many notorious police officers, and one of them is DGP. And Punjab now is like a police state. It has got 7 DGPs in it. Something is not right with the policies, and our question is fight against regressive policies, fight against those environments which do not allow people to practice their religion, practice their economies, practice their politics freely and fairly.
It is a total police state. Once I was travelling in Jalandhar and my car was randomly stopped. The police had a quick chat with the taxi driver, and they said, talk to the passenger in the back. And all of a sudden I had a gun pointed in my face.
Oh, wow.
And they asked me what was my father's name. They didn't want to know my name, they wanted to know my father's name. So it is a police state. There's a lot of corruption going on. And
I just, I don't want any of your viewers to feel that we are just venting out on what's happening in Punjab. Point is, these kind of practices are worldwide.
They're global.
And globally, people. We are in the age of information technology, and you know what governments were used to do before, they have to actually exercise their conscience to come out of it. And basically we are asking for every Punjabi, every Indian, every Sikh, especially those who are Sikhs and especially those who have taken Amrit. The reason I'm saying is, people who take Amrit, they publicly declare that they will follow the instructions in Guru Granth Sahib, and they will fight to against spiritual and political corruption. So it is inherent upon those who have declared that their father is Guru Gobind Singh, they have declared their mother is Mata Sahib Kaur, they have declared we belong to Anandpur Sahib. This is a declaration to say our full-time job is to take instructions from the Guru and figure out the best mechanisms to fight against injustices.
One of my worries is, and I want to actually, I don't know if I'm over-analyzing the situation with Balwant Singh.
Hanji.
He's very outspoken. He's asking very tough questions.
Yes.
The government's finding it very difficult to hang him.
Yes.
So they can't stop him asking those questions by hanging him. The Punjab jails have said we're not going to hang him. And yet he's asking tough questions.
Yeah.
And looking at history,
yes,
people like these get randomly shot when they get taken out and about, and things are set up like that.
Yeah.
What do you feel there's chances of something like this happening here, and what should Sikhs be doing about it to make sure that the government in Punjab is making sure Balwant Singh is kept safe while he's in their incarceration?
Well, we know from a world political scenario that in a post 9/11 world, the questions on rights didn't used to come up at all. Governments doing whatever. We have Sri Lanka in front of us. Finally, last week, UN said they're going to start inquiries on the war crimes. We know what has happened in Middle East or has been happening. But within last year, a new consciousness came up where an average person demands this. Average person. So, it's not just about the governments or the political leaderships or the spiritual leaderships. It is actually about you and me. It's about, in Punjabi, they use the word zamir, or they talk about consciousness. When an average person demands answers, when average person shows up on streets, which is, by the way, Sikh tradition, Sikhs introduce civil disobedience to India. Baba Khadak Singh was the man who introduced it to the Gandhis and Nehrus of India. We are the people, when we demonstrated that by bringing our Gurdwara backs from the occupiers, the stooges of the British government. We demonstrated that politically by setting up Shromani Akali Dal at Akal Takht Sahib, by doing an ardas that this is to protect the Sikh political interests. We need to start demonstrating, we is you and I, people who call themselves Sikhs of any flavor. It doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter which part you do. What matters is if you call yourself a Sikh, and there are 27 million of us right now. There are 20 million in the homeland, 7 million in the diaspora. It is our, Punjabi which they ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਹਰ ਮਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਭਗਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰ ਹੋਣ ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ. That's what we are now. No, you and I, whether you agree or disagree with the politics of Bhagat Singh, the idea is the spirit of Sikhi, the spirit of the true Punjabi spirit, which by the way is married into Sikhi as well. The beautiful things of Punjabi culture were married into Sikh culture. That's why there's a saying that the Punjab Vasda Guna Dena. The Sufis of Punjab adopted the ideas of Sikhi. They're very different than other Sufis. They use vocabularies of Sikhi as well. Professor Puran Singh has written a whole article on it. We need to go back to that idea where Punjab is, where the Hindus, the Muslims, the Sikhs, and the non-religious entities are able to live in a civil and peaceful and a pluralistic manner. And Sikhs have done this before. Sikhs did this 300 years ago. Sikhs did this 200 years ago. Sikhs have done this 100 years ago. It is again our heritage that when nobody speaks against injustices, we need to hear the voices of BALWANT Singh and contextualize even the larger history of Sikh struggles. And then we will start understanding what is happening in India. And this is a great opportunity for every Sikh, every Punjabi, every Indian, every world citizen to also be able to transform India, transform Punjab.
Well, during my father's time, Punjab used to be one of the most educated states in India, but now it's got a massive drugs problem. It's where each time I go back and I see all of a sudden more and more alcohol shops, English wine and beer shops, and whatever they usually label them as, and it's like become one big state of everyone's under nasha.
Well, you know,
how will you emancipate yourself if you're under nasha?
Well, this is where we got to go back to Shabad. We started the show with that. We got to go back to the wisdom. And Guru Nanak Sahib tackles this. You know, Guru Nanak Sahib tackles everything. We got to go back and actually interpret it instead of saying he tackles everything. And one of the things he says is, I am also interested in intoxication, but the one which is self-induced, not externally induced. And, you know, people, that's why I said, you know, certain things are happening by design. It is not a coincidence that a village will have two alcohol shops, a Desi and a Valeti, as they call it, a Grazi. But it does not have a school in that village, does not have a teacher for the last 15 years. Something is massively wrong. Who's issuing these licenses? Who is controlling the drug trafficking in Punjab? GNDU, which is a government university, so you know their numbers are going to be conservatives.
Yes.
But even they put out a study in 2010 saying 70% of the youth of Punjab, 70% is using drugs, which means if you know 3 youngsters in Punjab, 2 of them are using drugs. And this is happening because, you see, when you take people away from their language, you take them away from their heritage, you have regressive practices where they're not educated, as you mentioned. Punjab used to be #1 in education in 1900. In 2009, it's 14th. So it's directly proportional to our education. As Guru Nanak Sahib has also said, you know, the biggest weapon you can carry with you is knowledge. Ahran mat, ved hatyar. This is the weapon we must carry with us, weapon of knowledge. When Guru Nanak Sahib transferred Guruship to Guru Angad, Bhai Lehna at the time, Satta Balwant's war in Guru Granth Sahib says, they transferred Gyan Khadag, wisdom and sword. So this is our thing, Miri and Piri. Baba Deep Singh died fighting at the age of 82 with Khanda. Remember, at the age of 24 when he came to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, he started with the literary tradition. People we have in our tradition they are prepared to fight injustice. They're prepared by implanting the Shabad in them. And that's what we need to focus on.
It was one of the main things, even during Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time, he was encouraging the Sikhs to become very literary and to start reading, to break down those practices of having to rely on a third party, a Brahmin, a Qazi, or someone else to tell you what to believe in, to be able to realize for yourself, to give you that azadi.
That's right.
And one of the things is, Shahidi and azadi, they quite often go together.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, basically the idea is to make us free. Free from what? Anything which is not allowing our potential to grow. And Gurbani says, every one of us is divine. If somebody is putting pressure on my divinity to explode, this is how slavery comes in. You know, you watch today's BBC or CNN, they talk about modern slaveries. What are modern slaveries? You know, there's a trafficking of one kind, drug is another, sex is another, child is another. There are mental slaveries. People are trying to control with the propaganda war. This is what Noam Chomsky from MIT says. He says now the war is of propaganda. He wrote a book 15 years ago called Public Mind and the Propaganda War. This is where we need to, there are basically, Sikh idea is that you're going to hear so many things. Just like in our emails, we get so many emails these days. Do we read every email? We have filters on. We have, this is a junk email, this is a bulk email, and we flag the ones which are important. This is what Shabad Guru was saying. Bring Shabad in your life. When infinite wisdom enters, it creates filters. You cannot, it develops siddhak in us is the word. The intuition, the courage, the discipline, the faith. And when that develops, we are able to filter our noises. We are able to listen to the Guru one-on-one. So we don't need the Brahman mentality. We don't need the Qazi mentality. And we also don't need the Yogi mentality. Guru Nanak Sahib questioned all three of them. And he says, when we get out of these mentalities, we get into the divine mentality, which is you have one-on-one relationship with the divine. You use the divine inspiration, and you might become a great lawyer. You might become a great writer. You might become a great poet. You might become a great warrior. And this is when the only time you know what your capacity is, when you allow inspiration and source to be divinity.
Mental slavery, actually, the work we've been doing at the Gurdwara with other Sikh organizations in response of Sikhs having problems in Europe, we found quite often that a lot of the Sikhs we talk to and deal with seem to have this thing that the Indian government will step in and sort their problems out for them.
Yeah.
But they seem to forget that they're citizens of the UK or citizens of France, and that they should be demanding their rights, their freedoms, as citizens of those countries. They don't need a third-party state to necessarily step in. How ingrained is it within us that we are slaves to India, and that we need India to represent us in our problems? Or should we be representing, getting freedom and representing ourselves as individuals, as Sikhs, for our problems, not as people of a particular third-party nation when we have a problem, let's say, in Europe or France or here in the UK?
I mean, it's a great question, which honestly we haven't had enough genuine dialogue on to figure out how Sikhs should be dealing with. But I'll offer a couple of things to think about. Have you ever seen that a Catholic church, which is headquartered very close from here, only an hour flight I would take it,
Yes.
that they will actually try to ask Italian government,
Never.
what should we do? And whatever order they issue, it's binding on each Catholic to figure out how to accept it, everywhere in the world. Our thing is, that used to happen to us even when somebody served under Ranjit Singh or the Mughal Empire, and we'll include Indian Empire, we'll include Punjab Police, which is the case we were discussing earlier. The order used to come from Akal Takht, and every Sikh used to bow to it. We need to figure out how to make independent Akal Takht again. This is our control and command center. Because we don't have that platform, and Sikh psyche has known that people have, with bad intentions, have occupied it. There was a stooge of British government who occupied it 100 years ago. Similar situation is happening now. We salute the office of Jathedar. We salute Akal Takht Sahib. In our psyche, we knew that bad people can occupy it. But what has happened since 1995 is we had stopped saluting Akal Takht Sahib. Every Sikh, from their mentally and from their money as well as physically, we need to really come with a strategy on how to have Akal Takht which is independent.
Yes.
Second thing I want to add to it, my nationality happens to be American now.
Yes.
So, in America and France, there is a big comparison which Tocqueville actually did when he was visiting. He said, in Bastille, when the revolution happened, the government of France decided that its government will give rights to the people. When the revolution happened in America, which I think is akin to the ideals of Sikhi as well, they decided the government doesn't give right. It's a God-given right. Government just assures that right is practiced properly. And this is us. We should work with wherever we are citizens to work with those governments as partners while invoking Sikh ethos which come from Guru Granth Sahib.
Okay. Harinder Singh of Sikh Research Institute, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. We're about to finish, and as that sort of leaving thought on the program, I'd like to leave with the Sangat that the thought of an independent Akal Takht, Guru Khalsa Panth. If we want freedom, we need to make our institutions free. If we want Azadi, our institutions need to be Azad of political corruption. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Harinder Singh. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
So we have this problem within the Sikh community that we have so many different various groups, and they seem so ready to fight with each other than to unify and deal with what is the actual threat to Sikhism.
Yeah. Well, the external threats have never really destroyed us. In fact, whenever there have been genocidal campaigns, people have predicted we will be wiped off from this earth, including professors or writers like Khushwant Singh in his 1961 book said that Sikhs will not see the next millennium. The point is these kind of predictions come whenever there's external threat. Issue has been that we have had too much dilution in our Gurmat or the doctrine, and that's the biggest threat to us. And I'll give another example of that is that Akal Takht has been destroyed so many times.
Yes.
But since 1995, now we have reduced Akal Takht status in our minds, in our psyche, and that's a bigger threat.
That's the biggest.
So when we start destroying things even at a doctrinal level, at our mind level, at a Punjabi and Sikh psyche level, that is the biggest threat. And that usually happens when we are not connected to the Shabad, when we are not really listening to the instruction of the Guru which are contained for us in Guru Granth Sahib. Rather, we start copying what other traditions and other people are doing.
It's interesting what you said about Sikhs reaching the next millennium, because when the British first ran across the Sikhs, they were studying us with great fascination because they thought we were a dying race.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everyone says that. That's why, every South Asian ruler has said that. In 18th century, they declared us that we were, criminal and illegal, and they said no Sikh is left. In 19th century, it happened. In 20th century, it happened in 80s as well. Now we're in a new millennium. In fact, one of the theses of Sikhi actually is when people are eliminating us, even physically, the reason they're doing it is because we are strong. Because we are steadfast in our belief. Your forefathers and your foremothers, my forefathers and foremothers, we are the descendants of people like Taru Singh, not in biological sense, but in values sense. And why was he tortured and martyred? Because he believed in certain values. Because what are those values? Values which make us free. Freedom from spiritual slavery, economic slavery, political slavery. And that's what used to unite us. Exactly, which is what Guru Nanak Sahib taught us in everywhere, from Guru Nanak through Gobind Singh Maharaj. And institutions were developed by each Guru to make sure we become mentally free, spiritually free, politically free, economically free. So, this is what moksha or mukti is for Sikhs. This is what marjivada is, that you are free while you are alive in this world, not the world beyond. And this is what our traditions maintain. Historically, this is who we remember in Ardas. This is how our shaheeds used to be. This is how our writers used to be. This is how our people who are incredible sevadars and jathedars used to be. This is how the renaissance of Sikhi came about, that we became free at each and every level.
Yes. Actually, on to the topic of shaheeds.
Yes.
13th of March was the day when Shaheed Udham Singh, a Sangat member of the Khalsa Jatha, British Isles,
Yes.
shot Michael O'Dwyer
Yeah.
in Caxton Hall.
Yes.
And very sanely just said, "Here I am, take me, do what you will."
Well, I think sometimes people say there are coincidences in life. I am one of those who believes that there are no coincidences in life. This is a great lesson for us that, a lot of our community runs away from political activism. And here is somebody in London who came here, and he was not even in Sikh form, right? Sometimes we internally start arguing who's a Sikh, but those who are killing us, they never argue about that. Anyone who says he's a Sikh, she's a Sikh, or he's a Sikh.
Yes.
So the point is, yes, he was a member. He has his last meal at Punjab.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Channel studio here in London for the last word. And today with me is Harinder Singh of the Sikh Research Institute. I'd like to welcome Harinder Singh to our program.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's good to be here.
Yes, so you've just done a talk at Central Gurdwara, Khalsa Jatha London, and we've been talking about how to unify everyone and how to keep things back to Khalsa, to get everyone looking into the oneness of the Ik Omkar, getting everyone unified again. And how do you think that's going to happen?
Well, the only way it can happen is the way it used to happen, which essentially is when people are connected to the Shabad, which is the wisdom contained within Guru Granth Sahib for us. Until and unless we understand that and start practicing it, which is visible in our daily behavior, we will not get unified. We will have superfluous unifications.
Yes.
So, and one of the examples I had given in my talk was that whether it's in 20th century or in 18th century, whether it is during genocide time or Green Revolution time, the thing which really works is when people unify under the banner of Guru Granth Sahib, when they take the teachings and instructions from the Guru, not from individuals or just a restaurant here in central London.
Yes.
And he came to Gurdwara here, and even if people don't know his incredible history, even with all his misgivings, even if you have seen his regular Punjabi movie where Raj Babbar is acting it out,
Yes.
he in fact shows, and on his mission on the last day, he stands in front of whatever the popular culture is, which is a portrait of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, and he says, help me get success in my mission. And this is us. These are the Punjabis who embrace Sikhi, and this is how we were used to be, that we are not about vengeance, but we are about justice. When the laws of the land fail, when there are extremities adopted by the governments of the times against injustices, then we figure out our own way, not by talking to institutions, not by creating conspiracy theories, not by acting, by doing stupid things, but by having conversations with Waheguru or Guru.
Yes, I'd actually like to sort of increase awareness amongst our viewers of Michael O'Dwyer. Was a governor of Punjab.
Yes.
He was not just the governor when the Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place, but he was also gave the order for warplanes, albeit in their basic